The scale of the mountain, terrifying and insurmountable. To all those that are brave enough, we salute you. Round 9 of the SOF Championship for the FF1600s takes us to Mount Panorama. I'm Harry Burrows, as ever, joined by Ron Malms for this legendary Australian track that brings much excitement to many a schedule when it's around. Have you ever seen a car go draft before, Ron?
That I have. I think I've seen that a couple of times. It's a very rare sight to be sure, especially in this schedule that we've had thus far in Season 3 of 2025. We were joking about this a little bit before the start of this broadcast, Howie, talking about how this feels like the last of the massive draft tracks here from this season, looking ahead to the tracks like Sonoma, Oschersleben, and Donington Park to follow in the weeks ahead. Really a bit more on the tight, twisty, and technical end. You gotta test these driver skills, but here at Bathurst, it's a mix of both. You got test of these driver skill and patience from turn 2 all the way through to the exit of Forest Elbow of turn number 18. But outside of that, you've got some long flat out blasts around this track. So that draft fest heading down into turn number 2 and also heading down the Conrad straightaway, going to be rather massive here today. Drafting probably going to be the word of the day.
This is the first week of the championship where we'll be including one of our 4 drop weeks when the days are over. So drivers that have missed some rounds might want to stick around, but a win last week for Renz Brookman puts him in a fantastic position to absorb anything that happens to him for a short while. Gronkowski and Tough still in the chase. Tough despite the lack of a win, still ending up there through consistent results. A lot of competitive drivers on the field, including some that we're not usually used to in this series, but have driven these cars absolutely plenty, and a 4.3k SOF.
Yeah, we got a stacked grid of racers here in this race today. We're looking through some familiar names in my book, some ones that we haven't seen, though, in these top split broadcasted races here on Maconi Entertainment that you can catch every single Monday afternoon / evening / morning, wherever you are in the world. Looking through this field, we've got a whole lot of talented racers up and down. One driver that caught my attention, though, is Andre Castro, a driver that we haven't seen in one of these Formula 1600 races. However, he is a racer that I've gotten to know for a decent amount of time over on the Radical side of things here on the iRacing platform. I get the opportunity to cover the top split Radical races on Friday evenings here on the East Coast. And Andre Castro, the American, a very talented racer in his own regard, with some experience running in US F2000 machinery, NASCAR Xfinity Series machinery, as recent as this current year. Ran on some of the road course a little bit earlier on this season here in 2025. And he also has some Formula Ford experience. He even placed 3rd in the Formula Ford Festival in 2021. So Andre Castro, really good behind the wheel of these race cars. I know him to be a fast racer, and I expect some pretty cool things to come out of this driver from the number 4 car.
This is a very long lap, so let's sit through it together on our first go around. It's got a bit of the character of both a street course all the way up the hill and then a massive drag race all the way down. Grifters Bend, the first major turn you bump into, but it's the cutting that begins this street race-esque portion that you end up seeing near the top of this hill. I often lose the rear end, slide it out and lose everything on the way. Up the hill, Quarry Corner sets up 2 right-handers. And then we sort of level out for a little bit. We don't get any terribly named corners for all too long. It starts to speed up a bit. These cars obviously naturally low in grip. They really have to try and cling to the ground around here. You see that big Coates Hire sign, and this is when you begin to enter the skyline, the beginning of the dramatic downhill S's. We gotta make sure there's no traffic jams down in here, let me tell you that, because the Dipper has even more where that came from. A massive steep drop off, just trying to cling on and navigate. And then you approach Forest Elbow for one of the longest drag runs of this entire season.
Conrad straightaway got brought up by a person I was doing a broadcast with yesterday, my Weekend Warriors colleague Charles Beauchel, who's not with us here at Maconi Entertainment. One of the very few sections of racetrack named after a point of failure on a car, but here's a real point of failure on this track to chase.
One big, tough chicane, go off the track, lose your qualifying time. Thankfully, plenty of runoff not to kill cars. But Andre Castro has indeed made a clean lap. Laps in the 2-minute section as drivers start to fly through. Nikita Amarov, a new driver, setting it up. Matt Kendall, fastest on the first go around so far. Renz Brookman would have just crossed the line. Andre Castro's fastest.
Yeah, Andre Castro jumping up to the top of the board at a 220.159. A very challenging section of this racetrack is that final corner, turn number 23, Murray's Corner, as it is called. And as I like to call it, the shark tooth curb on the outside can be rather deadly in all types of machinery. These Formula 1600 cars have certainly no exception to that rule. But getting towards the end of qualifying, it may not seem like much. It's like, oh, we still got 2.5 minutes left to go. Got a decent amount of time left. No, here around this track, it is such a long circuit, probably the longest lap times we have had all season long, certainly one of the longest racetracks that we have had. Man Panorama, it is a menace of a racetrack, this, and as I said, as I was kind of previewing this track a little bit earlier on, Howie, a track of two halves, so to try and nail it down in these cars for these racers and trying to master the way these FF1600 cars drive, you got two tasks on your hand. You need to go fast down the straightaways, and you also need to go through the corners without croaking.
The wall of shame goes to drivers that didn't set a legal lap the first time around. Renz Brookman, Jordan Gunkowski, Martin Arnoldus, Rafael Datos, and Jason Chen all failing to set a legal lap on the first go around. Some of those names near the bottom of their lap was well off the pace, but Renz Brookman would have been P3 if he didn't make an off-track excursion. If he makes that again, he's going to start from the back. If you can keep the car in one place, I think you might be able to leapfrog people around here and get some good jumps. I don't think you're really stuck to your position at all if you're going to be running the high gear stack and using the draft down these long straights, but you do want to stay away from some of the horrible incidents that can happen when the field stacks up going up the hill.
You know, I'm going to place this wager right now. I'll tell you this. If I was a betting man, Howie, I probably would be homeless. But if I could bet without any money on the line, I would probably say that a driver is going to ballpark it here today as Matt Kendall jumps up to that provisional pole, about to get the final times on the board here in qualifying. Kendall briefly jumping in front of Andre Castro. Not sure where Castro is around this track right now. We have the 2 car coming across the line. Now that's Renz Brookman jumping up into P2 in that number 2 car, a 220.113. Here's the 5 machine. That's Gronkowski. He won some races a little bit earlier on this season, and let's see what he can do in this session as he comes across the line and jumps up to 4th.
17 cars on the track. Martin Arnoldus, the only one failing to set a time. That's everybody now pretty much supposed to think Nikita Amarov isn't in car. Yevhen Paschenko won't hit the line in time, so what you see is what you get on the left-hand side of the tower, but we're going to have a run through that starting grid once we transition session and let the drivers hit the track for what's going to be a scary 20 minutes of action. Let me tell you that.
Horrifying.
Matt Kendall lines up in pole with Renz Brookman alongside in P2. Andre Castro in P3 next to Jordan Gronkowski on the second row. Daniel Tufts sits in P5 next to Anne Medma for 5 and 6. On row 4 we have Christopher Cash and Jason Chen, the rookie on board perhaps to this SOF series. Ray Rory Hunt is in 9th and Dan Blake is in 10th.
And looking outside the top 10, the list of the racers in this field continues on with Fabio Berchtold in P11 alongside Frederick Sorley starting this race in 12th. Right behind on row number 7 is Nikita Ambrov alongside Philip Sear right alongside in 14th place. It'll be Yevhen Paschenko starting this race in P15 alongside Rafael Ditos. And then I believe that will just about round out our starters here in this race. We had one more that I don't believe even took to the track during qualifying. anything. But still, 16 starters here in this race, Howie. It's going to be a terrifying run. That run off into turn number 1 of Hell Corner may not seem like a whole lot on paper, both a standing start for these racers to try and tackle. It is going to be a rather tough ride. Track conditions looking pretty all right. 82 degrees Fahrenheit for the track temperature, 68 Fahrenheit for the ambient. That may not be the hottest in the world. It's just about perfect for these cars. You can see those measurements in Celsius there on the bottom of your screen right now. Pretty dry as well. Only 27% humidity. These racers will not be driving through a giant bowl of soup here today, but instead they'll have to deal with a track that's, let's face it, is very similar to many things that you can find in Australia, in the sense that it'll find any way in the book to try and kill you.
Drivers lined up on the grid. This is going to be a dramatic run on the first lap, and we are green here at Bathurst. Lots of single file very, very quickly as Matt Kendall takes the lead and leads the pack up the first hill. Don't expect to see so many dramatic moves immediately, but this will give us an example of just how this train runs, and they're already doing a little bit of IndyCar snake driving up the straight. It's Ann Medmer who looks to be making one of the first moves. Renz Brookman's going to try sending it free wide alongside Andre Castro. On the outside line, Renz Brookman takes advantage. Matt Kendall sits in P2, Castro in 3, and Gronkowski looks all over the rear bumper of Castro.
Yeah, and Kendall, after starting this race up at the front, being the 5th driver to start one of these top split broadcasted races here at Maconi Entertainment from the pole position here in Season 3 of 2025, drops back early, but that should be expected around this track. The game of leapfrog going to be very much so on, heading up the mountain straightaway between turns number 1 and 2, and then we've got that Conrad straightaway to boot as well, heading down there off into the chase. Going to be a rather terrifying ride for these racers as well. It is narrow, this track, but here's the challenging spot, the tie and the twisties, the sad tapeworm, as I like to call it, of Skyline.
Bit by bit, I think everybody's just trying to make sure that their car stays in one piece for the first lap. I'm not going to rely on the lap counter this time. Bit of a lock-up from Daniel. Tough slows him down. Not going to rely on the lap counter this time after last week's shenanigans, but we're expecting about 9 laps will work on the white flag when the time comes. Now time for the long run down the straight. Castro stays left behind Matt Kendall, and that might give this 2 the advantage they need. I bet there's a little bit of contact and a little bit of pushing down that hill, judging by how close they run. Lots of space. Whoa! That looks like Ann Medmer flying wide. Self-inflicted, making it back to the track in time. No serious contact, but that's going to slow him down for a bit. But I think as long as you don't lose touch of this pack by having heavy contact, you can be a part of this game. We've finished our first lap here in just about 3 minutes.
To finish first you have to finish. That is definitely going to be the name of the game for these racers. Make it there to the checkered flag. Castro looked like he was about to go for a dive, heading off into the hell corner of turn number 1. That is not a smart move, doubly so because you've got this long mountain straightaway that immediately follows it. You can see that game of snaking going on as Kendall pulling over to the side. He's going to let those racers pretty much blow his metaphorical doors off, heading back down the hill, then back up the hill into Quarry Corner, turn number 2. It's interesting, iRacing actually mislabeling some of the corner names on the iRacing track map. That threw me for a loop on many, many occasions. But Renz Brookman jumping up to the front. Matt Kendall now in P2. Andre Castro and Jordan Gronkowski riding at this pack side by side into the cutting is going to be Andre Castro jumping up to second. Well done for the driver of the 4 car.
As with many pack races in this series, this is going to be one where it's not about where you are 3 minutes into the race. It's where you are in time for that last lap, and sometimes being first is going to be a detriment, but sticking with this pack is going to be important. Cash is the last driver that really has visibility of it behind. Graham Rory Hunt slowed down substantially. Dan Blake is around. I think he's the only driver involved in that, but that is definitely a slow Blake. Will try and catch a replay of that at the end of some of these crazy straights. Hopefully nothing else horrible happens to the field that's going to require the field surgeon in order to unpack. Down we go, 6 cars running. Going to have to use this blimp and keep an eye on how drivers react to each other.
And as we're going to see this battling go on, heading down the Conrad straightaway, Brookman and Castro side by side. Look at Matt Kendall getting a massive run behind there as well. Look at him in that number 1 machine trying to cut some shapes and move his way up into second. Get a move done on Brookman, potentially a bit of overlap as they turn off into the chase. The chicane at the end of the lap, the one addition to this track ever since it opened back in the 30s. They had this back in the mid 80s, and ever since then this track has remained unchanged. And you can see these racers still giving each other hell, throwing haymakers at each other as they head their way side by side all through Murray's corner. At the end of the lap, Andre Castro got to jump into the race lead. Brookman now in P2, Kendall and Gronkowski now giving us a side by side fight. Look at Daniel Tufts and Christopher Cash getting involved in this fighting as well. These long straightaways giving us some good spots to see these racers go side by side and 3 wide at certain points in time as well. But I'm a little bit surprised, Howie, that we haven't seen any racers fall into trouble at the top end of the track yet.
I see these drivers running this close, and I really worry that they're all going to be there by the end of the race. This doesn't even have to be a badly placed move that causes problems. It can just be a small idle mistake, a little bit of internet racing between the two, and all of a sudden it's all over. And I'm scared looking at how close they run on this track. Daniel Tufts and Cash are 2 drivers that haven't really been able to punch out of these last 2 places yet. Matt Kendall's dropped back quite a lot, and now he's holding up the 2. Gronkowski's kind of left alone just a little bit. It's as interesting the way this is playing out differently.
Yeah, it is very fascinating what we're seeing these racers do, taking different strategies. I mean, this is it's the usual length when it comes to time, but in terms of the amount of laps in this race, it's the shortest by a significant margin here in Season 3 of 2025. We're seeing some racers take it easy, others give each other hell. This is a real trouble spot that I'm surprised we haven't seen anybody get called out by yet. Forest Elbow, those Falcon walls around that section of the track can be very hungry for bits of Formula Ford cars. Could be a wheel, could be a nose cone, doesn't matter what it is, they will want to be fed by the end of this race.
Drivers fly in, Castro doing it again. Here's the game that we're going to have to start calculating now. Can you claim the lead over the line if you're first going down the hill? You obviously lose it here, but this isn't the last chance to fight like hell for it. And that sort of time is going to give us a good sign as to whether drivers are able to win from that place. If they can't, they're going to rapidly change the way they plan and the way they drive around each other. For now, it's looking like P2 would be a dream position, but obviously drivers are letting it go right now. They're not litigating the issue on the straight. It's going to start getting very hot when these drivers see the white flag.
Yeah, I think as we get off into the final couple of laps, I'd probably say with 3 laps left to go is when we're going to start to see these racers begin to turn up the wick. For now, though, I wouldn't say they're running single files. We got side-by-side racing between Andre Castro and Renz Brookman heading up the mountain straightaway into turn number 2. Who's going to win out in this battle? I believe you could probably give it to Brookman, who's on the outside and sweeps around it to get that move done to jump his way up into the race lead once again. But we're going to start to see these racers really begin to give each other hell as we get a little bit farther along in this race. A drafting crazy event like this one here at Bathurst, one of those races where you don't really benefit from just throwing haymakers at each other. If you go side by side throughout the entirety of the race, you significantly increase your chances of just pile driving your competitors or pile driving yourself off into the wall. So I think at this point these racers probably decided to take the smooth lane at this point, as we're kind of in that middle 10 minutes of this event right now. We take a look at Dan Blake and a moment he may have had heading off through that section of the track. Looked rather smooth from him. Yet again, I'm a little bit surprised that these racers haven't been bit by the bullet as I thought they would, as that was Blake and a moment he had. That was heading off into McPhillamy Park. I believe that was off through turn number 9 where he initially lost it on that inside curve.
That was that significantly earlier in the race, and a little bit of a check-up as we return to live pictures here from Castro. Gronkowski runs into the front. I don't think that's caused lasting damage after all is said and done. No, you can see a little bit of paint damage to the front of Daniel Tuff's nose, and Matt Kendall is actually meatball flagged. You would not believe that from what we saw, but that's the data I've got on my screen. I think a Constantina effect has done something unusual to that car. I'm checking with my data. That is a standing meatball flag of something that I'm very, very surprised that even counted for that. Let's take a look. Probably on a better camera, please. The trees. Here we go.
Damn you, trees!
Maybe we should do a bit of landscaping.
I like that strategy. Break out a little bit of break out a blowtorch and just burn it all down. Don't do that, actually. We do not condone. Smokey would not be happy about that. As you can see that stack up heading off through Forest Elbow. I gotta imagine it's some sort of suspension damage that's dragged him down pit lane with that meatball flag. I was a little bit shocked about that as well, but yeah, meatball flag outstanding for him, so that's going to be huge. And another meatball flag for Jordan Gronkowski as well. So the meatball flags really coming down bad on these racers as Andre Castro, that's how Gronkowski picked up the meatball flag. Castro looping and heading his way off through the final corner, and Gronkowski taking a hammer blow hit into that outside wall. That's going to take him out of this race.
That's a case of horrible place, horrible time for Gronkowski. That's a smart way to go on that outside line as well, but he cannot convert. There's no time to react. I heard apologies in the chat about shifting to first, and that's just killed a race flat for Gronkowski. Unbelievably frustrating, and now this front pack has changed quite significantly to Daniel Tufts completely on his own alongside Renz Brookman. No, Renz Brookman's alone in P1, and Tufts leads the charge. 5-second gap between Tufts and what's above, and now the battle sort of scales out here, and this is really interesting, because to me, a pack that works together here could compete for the win down straights that are this long. It's going to depend on how they drive this, how hard they battle it, but if they use this draft on each other and slingshot each other through, Daniel Tufts calling out on the mic. He has no arrow. He's slow in a straight line. He's not going to be able to keep up this chain. And so other drivers here are going to need to work out how to play this if they want to catch. That's Cash running wide again. Second driver to do it. How are people going to catch Renz Brookman like this?
Mix of prayer, nitrous, and probably a falling anvil coming down on Renz Brookman head. A 4.9-second gap with not a lot of time left to go in this race. I wouldn't say that's insurmountable, but it's definitely close to it with 4 laps left to go here at Bathurst today. That could have ended in an absolute disaster, though, as we saw Christopher Cash go off the track, running through the grass. That car of Daniel Tufts is essentially a rolling roadblock. You can see a little bit of nose cone damage to the front end of that race car, and if we can see it, you can see a little bit, it's slightly upturned. You can see the barge board underneath that race car. You can see the flat bottom of it sticking up a teeny tiny bit. So that's what's really hurting his straight line speed, and that's why he is dropping down like a stone thrown right into a pond. As that's Graham Roy Hunt and Nikita Abramov getting a move done on him, heading off down the mountain straightaway into turn number 2. The next two to catch up are going to be Christopher Cash and Jason Chen. Chen, a driver who I've gotten used to running in the Weekend Warriors. He's a top competitor in the Spec 2 class there, and he's on track to win a championship as well in that series. But here in these officials running pretty all right, and the first time we've seen him thus far this season, slotted in 7th as it stands right now in that number 17 car. A nice drive from him right now, and probably going to gain at least one more spot, because that car of Daniel Tufts, it is so slow heading down the straightaways, you'd probably wonder if that car was being powered with milk.
Time is desperately running out to make something matter here. And because of the dynamics of the way Tufts has been damaged, people haven't really been able to work to push up to the pack. And now even look at this right now, and Medma has held this like 6/10 gap over Graham Rory Hunt, and no one's catching and no one's taking advantage. We're on lap 6 out of an estimated 9 right now. You only have a few more runs down this straight to seriously gain time, and we're not getting it. Daniel Tufts sitting in behind, 3 wide behind Jason Chen in the middle. Castro still in it. Christopher Cash loses out on pace. But we're seeing some quite atomized little groups here. We're not seeing the pack able to reach Renz, meaning he's probably enjoying what amounts to a Sunday drive here at Bathurst.
Yeah, Renz Brookman, he has found just about every single way to do well in one of these races and not make it to the checkered flag. But this would be win number 2 for him, and doing so in back-to-back races. That'd be pretty nice. The last driver to do that was actually Jordan Gronkowski in the third and fourth races of this season, a little bit earlier on in the championship at Summit Point and Watkins Glen. We see Daniel Tufts with that front nose cone damage, really trying to squabble with Abramonov, and a little bit surprised that we are seeing Daniel Tufts really give it hell like that. You can see the nose cone damage. Couldn't really see it from the far shots, but as we had that close angle as he headed his way down into turn number 1, you could see the marks on the front end of that car, and you could see that nose sticking up a teeny tiny bit. It may not seem like much, but in these race cars, no downforce, any sort of body work on there is meant to cut through the air, and any little tweak to that is really going to hurt you. But Daniel Tufts, again, some moves done as Graham Rory Hunt ran wide down into turn number 2, and he's going to pick him off to jump his way up to 4th. Well done from Tufts. I'm sure it won't last too long because we got a decent amount of flat-out blast between now and the checkered flag, but the fact that Daniel Tufts hasn't completely dropped down like an anvil push out of a helicopter is rather impressive.
I've been listening to Tufts on the radio. Don't say I can't recognize some drivers nowadays by their voice. And he's been saying, you noticed on the last 2 straights, he didn't really gain on anyone. He's saying he's not lifting. That's how fast the car is going right now. So he can get right but into the bumper of another car. He might be able to push him. He cannot get a run to go past. We're going to stay on board. I'm going to show you what that effect looks like in the draft. It's going to eat into his positions. One thing Tufts keeps doing, even if he can't top 3, even if we've not spoken to him post-race, is he does seem to be able to consistently convert results that are good enough to stay up there near contention. If he wants to win this championship, he'd need a few miracle wins, but he could easily climb a 2nd or a 3rd like this. Here he is. Here's Daniel Tufts' top speed. It's simply not what you're seeing from drivers behind. Here's Andre Castro. He's gone slingshot engaged down the back stretch and braking it right in time for the chase. Is going to have it too wide for 2 rows. I can't believe Tufts is still here. And a bit of iRacing glue, I think, has stuck these two together in a fairly unholy alliance.
Oh, I knew that they were in trouble as soon as they came out of that section. Look at them, all 3 linked together, and the 2 of them stuck like glue to each other. That's Castro and Abramov coming to blows as they headed their way off through the chase. That was good racing there from Castro, and then Abramov hits that curb on the inside, gets a little bit loose. That sends Castro off into the curb as well, and there they go, stuck together, wheels linked together. Pretty much the only way to get out of a situation like that is for one of them to hit the wall. That has got to be one of the goofiest sites I've ever gotten the opportunity to commentate on in my iRacing broadcasting career, but it's unfortunate for the both of them, Castro and Abramov. I think they have now gotten splits. That or they're going to run like a hacky sack race with their 2 legs tied together, but they're currently down P13 and P14 right now. Castro, he has been up and down through this field. Unfortunate for him, he's a very good racer, and I believe this past Friday, whoa, my good lord, that right there. Oh, more drama, holy cow.
I saw 2 meatballs and I couldn't resist seeing what caused that, and that, my friend, is pure violence. This is what I meant by bringing out the EMT. Mama! Oh, that is Pashenko behind. Let me try and get his onboard for this, because that is a terrifying way to go. I need to find out where the roll bar button is as he catches this stricken car against the wall. And by the way, tempers have really flared up in the voice chat, but I do intend to conceal identities and quotes when there's beef, let me tell you that. And just clipped on the edge.
Yeah, he just clipped him ever so slightly. It was a couple of inches the wrong way there, and as a result of it, that car got turned into a Beyblade, and he let it rip heading down in there. That may have been the cheesiest comment I've made in quite some time on one of these shows. Jason Chen and Graham Rory Hunt battling off into the chase, and through into P3 goes Jason Chen. A nice performance from the driver of the number 17 car. The rookie on board on the side of that machine. I think that's a test dummy car with those little circles on the side with the other yellow and and black on them, but it's working out well for Chen. As the white flag's in the air for Renz Brookman, this would be win number 2 for him. And also, I forgot to raise this a little bit earlier on in reference to the drama for Matt Kendall, who has now rejoined the race, albeit he's now down to 11th. We continue on the streak of only having one racer convert a pole to a win here in the FF1600s, and that was Kieran Shanks all the way back at Long Beach. That streak going to continue, and Renz Brookman going to win this race unless Medma picks up about 16 million miles an hour or Brookman finds a way to get struck by a falling anvil.
Next week on the channel, we end with 3 technical circuits. Sonoma Raceway in Southern California, home of the NASCAR Cup Series. We'll be taking on these drivers, and that's going to be a real driver's challenge in the scorching California heat. Same time next week on the channel. And then we'll be heading to a possibly wet day at Motorsport Arena Oschersleben, and still plenty of challenges down the line in a season very much in flux for many. Keeping an eye on where Renz Brookman is on the tracks. I don't really want to miss him crossing the line, but I've not seen a run without dispute for quite some time. That situation with the damaged tufts just meant that there was no physical way anybody was going to catch. He's going to convert to a P5 nonetheless, and Medma has a very safe and secure P2, and Jason Chen and Graham Rory Hunt are going to scramble around of each other for this final place.
Yeah, they're still dicing as they head their way down into Forest Elbow for the final time in this race. Graham Hunt going to be there in the catbird seat to jump in front of Jason Chen, who's going to be punching that hole in the air as we head our way onto the Conrad straightaway for the final time. Over the roar of these engines, you can hear the Jaws theme begin to play. Oh, Graham Roy Hunt, what in the world kind of strategy is that? The wiggle as he heads his way down there, and here into the chase they're going to go. Holds on to the inside through turn number 20. About to head their way off into the braking zone here in a couple of moments' time. Renz Brookman on track for the win, but Graham Roy Hunt got to be on track for a podium with a nice move around the outside.
Renz Brookman didn't have to think too much of it after everything went bad behind him, but that's one of the benefits of being there early. He takes an easy, dominating win, and Medma, very similar for the P2. He got to run on his own. Graham Rory Hunt, you just saw him there, gain and keep the position over Jason Chen. Checking those end results. He didn't slow early. That is a locked-in result. Christopher Cash sits in 6th, able to get past Daniel Tufts on the runaround. For some reason, this series does surprise me, and that's not the sort of race that I necessarily expected, but it did have some of the hallmarks of a 1600 race on a draft track. Let me tell you that. Andre Castro just got DQ'd, by the way, as he crossed the line.
Ooh, that is certainly not ideal for him. He had a pretty wild race, so I'm not too surprised about him hitting that DQ limit. Of course, it being the official 17X is that limit, and we're at a track like this as well, Howie. Very easy for those incident points to rack up as time goes on. I think this was the moment that sent him over the edge, as Andre Castro running right behind that number 10 machine. Those two were the ones that battled and ended in tears a little bit earlier on in this race, and as he tried to get that move done heading down the Conrad straightaway, it was still side by side, so we didn't clear him just yet, and they're close. Oh, Jackson. Oh, I thought that was going to be a round of bowling. That small little tap sent Castro over the edge. That's a bit of an anticlimax.
That was the DQ moment, and I think he had a frustrating race that he's going to choose to forget. For now, we'll take a look at our final race results. Renz Brookman takes home a win number 2 in a row. Head of Ad Medma finally getting a good result after some tough races. Graham Rory Hunt claimed 3-3, and Jason Chen finishes at P4. Christopher Cash finishes 5th with Daniel Tufts in 6th. Fabio Birchtold is in 7th, ahead of Martin Arnoldo's Philip Sear and Matt Kendall. Further behind down the road, Frederick Surley finished 11th, Dan Blake 13th, Nikita Aramov in 13th. Jordan Gonkowski took damage, finished 14th after a fast repair. Andre Castro as well, getting DQ sent to the end of the final lap. Rafael Datos and Yehem Pashenko, we hope they're okay after their incident at the top.
Yeah. Ooh, that, I'll tell you what, I've never in my entire time doing these broadcasts here on Maconi Entertainment, which is now stretching back to a full season. Holy cow, time flies when you're having fun. I don't think I've ever seen a Formula 1600 machine get sent off into the other spin dry section. That was a rather bizarre moment, to be sure, for the both of them. Overall, though, pretty solid race at Bathurst. We had our drama, to be sure, but I don't know about you, Howie. I was expecting that to be a bit more hectic than it was.
Well, I'd say that it became an interesting dynamic in part due to drivers slowly breaking themselves off by attrition. It's so hard to maintain a pack race for 20 minutes in these cars, and some of those accidents were very unfortunate and very much broke up the race. But we have some drivers to speak to, and it seems like no matter how he does, Rens Brookman finds a way in. But as our race winner, I'll have a word with him about his Sunday drive. Well, Rens Brookman, 2 for 2. Gotta say that a good amount of that you're not going to have too much to talk about, but you had to make it up to first to stay in first. Talk to us about that.
Hi guys. Sorry.
Hello.
1 second.
Yep. You're here.
Yeah, can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah.
It was a bit of an eventful race, especially behind me. It's a bit of unfortunate because I was really looking forward to the actual fight, the last 2 laps. Didn't really see what happened. I think Andre spun. Took some cars with him, and then from that point on it was just maintaining the gap and finish the race, really. It was a bit unfortunate for the other guys.
From my perspective, it started when Daniel Tusk took a pick of damage after a checkup, because at that point, a group that's working together struggles to keep up with you. When you're running alone for about 10 to 15 minutes at Bathurst, do you ever fear that the worst is going to happen to you?
Well, it almost did, actually, because the first lap I had that gap, I actually hit the outside wall on Forest Elbow quite hard. I was actually surprised I didn't get any wheel damage, so I was quite lucky there. And then from that point on, I just basically cruised. So I didn't want to do any mistakes, just want to keep a healthy gap so he wouldn't catch me towards the end, and just finish the race, because one tiny mistake here and it's over. So
this is the end of Draft Alley. We move into 3 much more technical and tricky tracks to round out the season, and your lead is starting to become very, very, very strong if you could hold this together. Do you have a favourite that's on the way?
Well, like I said last time, I really enjoyed Donington last time, even though it's a slightly different layout this time, which I have not driven in this car. But the track is always fun to race with. Race on. And Sonoma is sort of an all-time classic, so that's going to be nice as well. I'm not quite sure about Oschersleben, especially when it's possible that it's going to rain. But yeah, all 3 are good, really. But yeah, especially the last one.
Before we move on, I think maybe you've practiced a script for this at this point, but we still feel obligated to give you a chance to give any thanks or shout-outs.
Yeah, just as usual, you guys for doing the amazing broadcast and the people making this possible. And of course all the regular drivers in this series who make the racing amazing. Even though it was a little bit different this time, but yeah, week on week our other races are awesome. So yeah, thanks to everybody.
Another good win, championships in sight. Good result. See you next week.
All right, thanks. See you next week.
Well, that's one driver that didn't really get to race in the pack. Ron, I'm going to speak to someone that actually did get some draft battles down the straight. It's Graham Rory Hunt who finished P3.
And Graham Rory Hunt now joining us here in the broadcast booth. Graham, welcome in P3 at the end of this wild race at Bathurst. Happy to talk us through it from your perspective.
Well, I was a bit aggressive at the start. I thought I could just like make a position and catch a draft and then cause a bit of a split. So I was like, oops. But I kind of hoped that, well, not hoped, but I guessed that something might go happen later on that we could catch up. And indeed it did. There must have been some sort of elbow problem.
Yeah, I think I said this a little bit earlier on in this show, how the walls heading around Forest Elbow right at the start of that massively long back straightaway are rather hungry for Formula Fords. I always find that to be just such a challenging part of this already very challenging track. Would you say that converse from your perspective? I'm just saying this is a loudmouth. You're definitely a lot more talented behind the wheel than I am, so I'll take your word a bit more on that challenging section than I do mine.
I mean, I was, I don't know if you know that Terry Nightingale, but I was beating him last night by like a second on like the second to last lap. So it was kind of like borderline. I might have got away with it. He probably would have caught up. But I ended up just going straight into the elbow and took my cone off, and that was it. Game over. Last place. And that's
It's Yeah, I was gonna say it's a tough track to be sure. This one, and one of the longest ones of this calendar. But as was brought up by my colleague Howie a little bit earlier on in this show, really the last of the major drafting races here in season 3 of 2025. Gonna be heading off to Sonoma in 1 week's time. What are your thoughts heading there?
Wait, did you say no draft?
No draft to a certain extent. I think Ulster Slaben may be a bit draft heavy, and Donington Park as well. But Sonoma, I think, is going to be a bit less of a draft fest.
I'll probably have to put the practices in because I've never been on the track, so we'll see. But generally, I probably won't be that fast on it. I think if it's a new one, but
I think
I'll be there for the participation award at the back probably.
I'll tell you, Sonoma, it's like the iRacing backrooms. It is such an ancient scan. I think they're going to be putting in a new one for season 4 of 2025, but for now, it is the oldest scan on the iRacing platform. But Graham, we'll let you give any thanks or shout-outs before we let you go and get some practice in for Sonoma next week.
I'd like to thank Chris and Pure Motorsport for help with training and that. I've done a little bit this season, helped me point me in the right direction. Probably helped me race a bit, I think. But yeah, apart from that, I need to smoke.
Alrighty, fair enough, man. You smoked some tires and smoked your competition on your way to a P3 result, Graham. And thank you for joining us here in the broadcast booth. Looking forward to seeing you out there at Sonoma next week.
Yeah, and thank you. Cheers. Thanks for the commentary you two as well. Appreciate it. That's my shout out. There you go.
Had to include a Ronism.
A man of very simple needs.
Had to include a Ronism. Just you're very good at it. I call them Ronisms now. That was our P3 finisher, Rory Hunt. I've caught up with Jason Chen, who says he snuck into this race and he got a good result out of it. Jason Chen, first time speaking. It was implied, you implied in the YouTube chat you didn't really expect to be here, but you are here and you made it to P4.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's my first time sneaking into the SOF race because my I rating isn't very high. It was like 2700-ish. And this being my first time, just wanted to just try to stay clean, try to stay out of trouble in the race with how narrow Bathurst is. I just wanted to make it to the end, and it did not. I was expecting honestly to be towards the back in terms of pace or finishing position as well, because I do watch the Monday SOFs like from time to time. I know how fast these people are.
This certainly is a track that can change fortunes, but you're able to stick with it and not wreck through some of the drama up ahead. Is it scary at flying down a draft track this fast?
Yeah. I guess it got more crowded towards the end because the faster people initially, actually Graham and I lost draft to the leading pack, but then something happened in front. I guess there were some incidents and a bunch of them fell back, and then some of them had to like make their way through me again, and I didn't want to make any low percentage move. I just break where I'm comfortable with, and if they can break later and make the move stick, then good on them.
Well, I'd love to see you again in the split at one point, but in case we don't, this is your chance. Do you got any thank yous or shout outs?
Well, shout out to you guys, the commentators, and Ron especially. I know he does a lot of commentating for a lot of different broadcasts, and I don't know how he pulls it off. But
I am
I
the
guess
hobo
also
commentator. I am everywhere and nowhere at the same time.
And I'll also give thanks to just, I guess, everyone in the Formula 1600 community for like racing, trying to race clean and respectfully, and also sharing tips from time to time, and also organizing this SOF race.
For some reason, I thought I was waiting for Ron to say something when this is my interview. I'm a professional, apparently. Well, good to see you out on the track. If we see you again, then I'll certainly know where you started. Thanks for racing.
Thank you.
And that's Jason Chen, makes our P4 finisher, and that's going to mark the end of the show, an end of a dramatic one here at Bathurst. Last track of its kind, Ron, but any final thoughts?
You know, I'm surprised I didn't see someone get murdered. I'm honestly shocked. It was definitely a wacky race at certain points in time, but overall, those racers kept it very clean. Always expect that level of competition here in these official broadcasted races on Maconi Entertainment week in and week out. It's been a pretty good season up to this point. We have some good ones to round it off. Sonoma next time out. Certainly going to be an enticing and exciting race on a track about as old as dirt.
That marks the end of another week and the beginning of the dramatic drops up ahead. Very different tracks down the line, and we'll be here to finish off the entire rest of this season. So stay tuned, same time, same place every Monday for this season, and I'm expecting next as well. I've been Howie Burrows alongside Ron Mons as ever. Thank you very much for watching this broadcast.